Good morning. This is Bible in a Year, day 12. For the first part, we will be reading Genesis 32 and 33. And for the second part, Genesis 34, Psalm 12, and Matthew 12. Genesis 32. Then the angels of God encountered him, and as soon as he saw them, Jacob said, "This is God's camp." And so he called the name of that place Mahanaim, camps. Jacob sent messengers ahead of him to his brother Esau in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, commanding them as follows: "Thus shall you speak to my lord Esau. Thus says your servant Jacob, I have been residing with Laban, and have stayed right up to now. I have oxen, asses, flocks, male and female slaves. So I am sending to tell my lord in hope of finding favor with you." The messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau as he was on his way to meet you, accompanied by 400 men." Very much terrified and distressed, Jacob divided the people that were with him into two companies, as well as the flocks, herds, and camels. If Esau comes on one company and destroys it, he thought, then the remaining company can escape. Then Jacob said, "O Lord God, my father Abraham and my father Isaac, who didst say to me, 'Return to your country and your kindred, and I will make you prosperous,' I do not deserve all the acts of kindness and fidelity that thou hast shown thy servant, for with nothing but my staff I crossed the Jordan here, but now I have become two companies. Save me, I beseech thee, from the power of my brother Esau, for I am afraid that he will come and slay me, but as well as the mothers and children. But thou didst say, I will make sure to make you prosperous, and I will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which are too numerous to count." So Jacob stayed there that night. From what he had at hand, he selected a present for his brother Esau: 200 she-goats and 20 he-goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses and 10 he-asses. Putting them in charge of his slaves, with each drove by itself, he said to his slaves, "Proceed ahead of me and leave a space between one drove and another." To the leader he gave this order: "When my brother Esau meets you and asks you, 'To whom do you belong? Where are you going? And to whom do these animals belong that you are driving?' say, 'To your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau, while he himself is just behind us." He gave the same orders to the second and the third, and to all the others who were driving the droves, saying, "Give this same message to Esau when you meet him. Also be sure to say, 'Your servant Jacob is just behind us.' For, he thought, I may appease him with the present that precedes me, and then when he does see me, he may perhaps receive me kindly." So the present went on ahead of him, while he himself spent that night in the camp. That same night he rose, and taking his 2 wives, his 2 female slaves, and his 11 children, he sent them across the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and sent everything that belonged to him across. Jacob himself was left behind all alone. Then a man wrestled with him until daybreak, and when he found that he could not master him, he touched the socket of his thigh, so that the socket of Jacob's thigh was dislocated as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the dawn is breaking." But he replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." "What is your name?" he said to him. "Jacob," he replied. Then he said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, wrestler with God, because you have wrestled with God and man, and have been the victor." "Please tell me your name," requested Jacob. "Why is it you ask for my name?" he replied. Nevertheless, he blessed him there. So Jacob called the name of that place Peniel, face of God. For, said he, "I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been spared." The sun rose on him just as he passed Peniel. limping because of his thigh. That is why to this day the Israelites do not eat the hip muscle which is on the socket of the thigh, for the socket of Jacob's thigh was touched on the hip muscle. Chapter 33. Raising his eyes, Jacob saw Esau coming, accompanied by 400 men. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the 2 maids, and put the maids with their children in front, then Leah with her children, and finally Rachel and Joseph in the rear, while he himself went on ahead of them, bowing 7 times to the earth until he reached his brother. Then Esau ran to meet him, and embracing him, fell on his neck and kissed him, so that they wept. When he raised his eyes, he saw the women and children and said, "What relation are these to you?" "The children whom God has graciously bestowed on your servant," he replied. Whereupon the maids came up with their children and bowed, and likewise Leah with her children came up and bowed, and then Joseph and Rachel came up and bowed. "What do you mean by all these company that I met?" he said. "To win my Lord's favor," he replied. "I have plenty, my brother," said Esau. "Keep what you have." But Jacob said, "Not at all. If perchance I find favor with you, accept my present from me, since it is like seeing the face of God for me to see your face, and that you have received me favorably. Please accept my gift of greeting that has been brought to you, for God has been good to me, and I have all I need." Thus he urged him until he took it, whereupon he said, "Let us set out on our way. I will go alongside you." But he replied, "My Lord can see for himself that the children are frail, and that the sheep and cattle giving suck are a care to me. If they were to be overdriven a single day, the whole flock would die. Pray let my Lord go on ahead of his servant, and I will proceed leisurely at the pace of the stock that I am driving and the pace of the children, until I join my Lord at Seir." "At least," said Esau, "let me leave you with some of the troops accompanying me." "How can I thank my lord?" he said. So Esau started back that day on his way to Seir, while Jacob set out for Succoth, where he built a house for himself and constructed sheds for his cattle. That was how the place came to be named Succoth, sheds. In the course of his journey from Padan Aram, Jacob arrived safely at the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, and camped in front of the city. For 100 kasidas he bought a piece of ground on which he had pitched his tent from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem. There he erected an altar which he called El Helo Israel, El, the God of Israel. That ends chapter 33 and part 1. Thank you for listening.